All right, I think I'm going to call this to order. Our chair is taking some much needed time off and much earned time off, so you're stuck with me today. Do I have an approval for the agenda?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. Do you have to do all in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Public comments on the agenda. Anybody interested in asking and talking about anything on the agenda? All right. Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from June 6th, the regular meeting. Did everybody have an opportunity to review and any comments? Can I have an approval then?
I will make the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Next, we have the approval of the financials. Those were also in your packet. I hope everybody had some time to look at it.
May I interject with a bit of information?
That would be great.
So it was determined in the last few days that because this is a year-end annual report, that we needed to allow for some additional time to get all of the potential invoices in for year-end. And so we're waiting on a few things, I suspect. So with that, the accountants contacted the city at Bradford, had a conversation about what to do, and the course of action that was suggested was to hold off on approving this final report until it can be actually finalized and be a year-end report. So no action is necessary today on this item, so I apologize.
That's okay.
Madam Chair.
So are we talking 30 or 60 days after closure of the books?
It will be
60?
60.
Yeah, 60, okay. So maybe fall, September?
Well, I think we should be able to wrap this up in the next August meeting. But here's what I'm waiting on, just to be open and candid and out there, transparent. We have a couple of facade grants that have been issued in prior fiscal years, prior to our current one. And, there's two. And it would be easy and helpful to get those in and have them on the books for the previous fiscal year. And so that's, I don't expect anything else to be outstanding. Everything else seems to have come in, but I reserve judgment on that one. But I would like to try to wrap up the Gordon Rosmerick and the Fracano's facade grants. And so I'm waiting on invoices for those. I will reach out to Gordon Rosmerick and see where they're at. Fracano's is supposed to be getting them in, and I've had a conversation.
That's a good idea, because I think we carried a couple of the facades before, and it just gets to be messy on your financials. So leaves a lot of questions to be asked. So good idea. We will look at these again in August. Keep that on the agenda then. Number 6 is the election of officers. Mark, you've been dealing with this and
Yes, I have.
asking around. I don't know how you want to do it. If you want to do a slate of officers, or do you want to look at individual nominations? How do you do it usually?
I would defer to the board on their preference, but I've spoken to most of the existing, except for you. I've left a message. But I think everyone would be interested in continuing to serve unless someone else wanted to step forward. That is the general consensus. So if you would prefer a slate to renominate, that would be, I think, appropriate at this point, unless someone else felt like they were interested in putting their hat in the ring.
Okay, first let's list. We've got Kyle as your chairperson. I am your vice chair. Tomorrow you're the treasurer, right? And I'm sorry, but I'm not remembering who the secretary is.
Jody.
Jody? Okay, not here. All right, so that's your slate for now. Is there anybody, let's do one by one. What do you think by that? Is that, how do you want to do it? That way, if anybody's interested in a position, they can speak up. And we did have that conversation over the phone the other day, and, you know, for myself and for Kyle, certainly, if somebody else wants these positions, we don't, feel we have to hog them up. If anybody else can take them, so. Let's first start with chairperson, nomination of Kyle Mosher.
Make a motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. He'll be excited to come back and hear that. So, vice chair, Karen Goodman.
Make the motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'll tell her too. Treasurer, Tamara.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right. I'll send you a message. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And the secretary, Jody.
I'll make a motion. I'll
Second.
second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So we will go with Kyle, Karen, Tamara, and Jody as our leadership. All right? Thank you, everybody. And it's going to be an exciting year, I think, moving forward. So, the annual review of committees. At the annual meeting, committees will be evaluated and reappointed or dissolved. Mark, I'm going to need your leadership on these committees.
Yes. So most of the standing committees that were previously here have essentially been dissolved, and we have ad hoc or focus areas. Part of the reason why we had those standing committees was a vestige or a remnant of being a Main Street community. And so those were committees that were required to check the list off in order to be a Main Street community. We're not interested in going back to Main Street, I don't think, but personally. So what you're seeing here is a slow evolution away from those requirements into something that works for the Manistee DDA. And my personal opinion is that things are working, and until they're not working, we'll adjust. But we're all, you as volunteer board members are conscientious, and we're getting work done, and so I think that's working out. Right now, the general areas are, downtown business, merchants, that Deanna is kind of taking the lead on. Beautification, which Kelly is taking the lead on. And then, as necessary, things like streetscape design and others. Bill is kind of leading us through the streetscape work. So all of that's working out. So I would suggest that we stay the course, but the reason why this is on the agenda is that in our bylaws, it requires us to do this at an annual meeting, the first meeting after the beginning of the fiscal year. And so that's the reason why this is set on the agenda, is to check off that requirement and have a discussion. So.
I can add a little bit more history, and Tamara, you and I have been on it, so that, some of these groups were because, getting some projects done, having transitions of leadership. Sometimes you needed these committees to help during those transition times. It was there was more work needed, when we were going through all that too. So as we've stabilized and come to this agreement, it seems like things are a little bit smoother, so we don't need all those committees all the time. So, anybody else have anything else that they want to talk about or discuss about committees? I think our current setup is working well with the business merchant and the beautification, and then we put together groups as needed for different projects that come up. Good, all right. So do our rules require that we vote on that? There's nothing really to vote on.
No.
Governing rules should be reviewed annually, so they are reviewed. All right. All right, so a review and discussion from our ad hoc committees. Let's start with the Streetscape RFQ.
Thanks, Karen.
We missed-
Okay, wait.
We missed one, the interview of rules.
Oh, I'm just breaking the rules right at the get-go. Okay, sorry. Annual review of rules governing the Manistee, Michigan Downtown Development Authority. The governing rules should be reviewed annually by the Board of Directors, and they may be altered, amended, and repealed, and new rules adopted by a majority of the members present at the regular meeting to be effective upon approval of the Manistee City Council. So, do I have a motion to accept the governing rules?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, so there's our annual review. Now we'll go back to the ad hoc committees.
Thanks, Karen. So we received 5 proposals for our streetscape design RFQ, which was so good interest. We met, our RFQ committee met after we reviewed them. Kyle, of course, is on vacation. Received some of the scoring sheets back, not all of them. We were hopeful to maybe narrow down to 3 and then interview next week as we kind of had the plan, but I think, given I haven't received Kyle's scores, and I think we were trying to push it along, I think it's better if we kind of take a step back and meet internally a little bit more and then have a recommendation at the next
Sure.
DDA meeting.
And I'd like to add just a little bit of a justification too for the reason why we need to set back. I think we have an incomplete review because some of the materials weren't in or missing from one of the reviewers' packages. So I think we need to just take a pause, make sure we get it right, and then go forward. So I just want to add that because I think our responsibility is to do a good job and make sure that we are thorough. And I think just taking a beat would be a good thing to do. So I just support what Bill's direction. I just want you to know that.
Good news is I think we had some good interest from some good firms, and they put together a good whole team on a lot of these proposals. So it's kind of a good problem to have that we have a lot of good proposals to go through.
So we're moving the whole process out a month.
And I think we'll meet internally, our RFQ committee will meet next week if that's.
You need to let the bidders know.
Yeah, we'll let them know and thank them for their patience, but we want to do this right. And then I think the idea was, we'll narrow it down to either 2 or 3, and then we'll have 30 to 45 minute, they'll do a presentation, then there'll be Q&A for 30 minutes. That's the process, but I'm thinking the RFQ committee would do that, and then bring back a recommendation at some point to the DDA. All right, thank you.
All right, so you'll set up a meeting for next week sometime?
Yes, we'll work together on that.
All right, great. Any questions? All right. Next, we have the district business. Deanna?
Thank you. Things are really exciting downtown, like really exciting. And I kind of like the way Mark just paraphrased that we're kind of in this slow, what'd you just say? Slow motion to growth,
Mhm.
right? And so, but we're seeing some. So positive things downtown right now is that signage. Mark, that just looks wonderful. That, when you're coming downtown and it just screams downtown's open and some of it's really well done. So that's really good. And then keeping that westbound lane open is really helpful. So I hope we can keep that open as long as we can. But then it's exciting to see that the construction start too, because, we've heard a lot of when is it going to start, what's going on, and so that has calmed down, and now we're getting inquiries, our business owners are getting inquiries to what's going on, how exciting is this? It's nice to see some growth in Manistee or some movement. So I love hearing that positive verbiage. Something that has come up with some, and this is like a helpful sounding board committee to be able to bring this up too. Has there ever been a packet or some kind of guidelines for new businesses that might be coming into Manistee separate of like the chamber? Just, we want to encourage everybody to be a member of the chamber for sure. Starting out, they may not have the funds or, anyways, just a packet of some rules, if you will. When you're a storefront in a mall, you must follow their rules. You must follow their hours. You must follow just some basic rules. And downtown, I think in moving with the growth of downtown, we just kind of need to maybe button things up a little bit, or our businesses have to follow that as well. Some businesses are open on Sunday, some businesses are not open on Sunday. Sometimes you can get a cup of coffee downtown on Sunday, sometimes you can't get a cup of coffee downtown on a Sunday. Sometimes or businesses open till 5, or businesses closing because I'm going on vacation, or because I'm taking a grandparent day, or whatever. It just is kind of like, when we're opening a business downtown right now, are there any rules? Are there any set guidelines? Should there be some set guidelines?
Are there any requests?
From
Like, what would we like to happen? Not a rule, not a guideline, but it sure would be nice.
Yes, yeah. So, and when somebody's saying to me, what time does this business open? What time does this business open on Monday morning? And I'm bringing my phone up and I'm like, oh, they open at 10. Well, this one opens at 9. Well, this one opens at 8. Well, this one. What could be a better way? Do we form a committee of merchants to say this is kind of what we need going forward downtown? Same with signage downtown. Some people are following the rule that you submit the application to the city or to the Historic Society. Some people are not. There's a store downtown. I think that what they just did to their window is just absolutely charming. I think but it wasn't ran through the Historic Society by any means. And so why are some following this rule and then some are not? Mm-hmm. So I just want some guidance on that so that I can also take back to the merchants, like, this is what we have discussed, this is what makes sense, this is what we need to do moving forward to make our downtown just a little bit neater.
There used to be, some time ago, a packet that just kind of welcomed people and then kind of gave information about Manistee. But to my knowledge, there was no guidelines or, there was just generalities about the downtown. I think that's a great idea, but I think that really has to come from the merchants. Everybody be on board about start and stop times maybe. It is nice, I know that, like, I always just kind of in my head, always like Manistee's downtown opens at 10 o'clock. I know that that's the time to go because I know mostly everybody's open at that time. I just think it's going to be important because I know some merchants are trying to do it on their own. They put in an 8-hour day. That means 5 o'clock I'm done. So when I'm driving after work at 5, I'm like, darn, they're not open, so I just think it has to really be driven by them.
I think so ideally, everybody, arrives at some consensus on this, but it's the business owners, it's the chamber, it's the DDA, and it's the city. I think a working group with, those folks on the working group coming up with, that kind of stuff. The city adds, regulatory requirements, what has to be done, what should done, and what we'd like to be done. And this group, puts that together. I think it's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, I think starting with your merchants and kind of putting together what are you looking for, getting a consensus. If it's two people's idea versus 10 others who say no. You know, I mean, you just got to come to that consensus. Being part of that downtown merchant group many years ago, you know, sometimes we all ran very individually. You know, so if you can get them all together and then, like Bruce is saying, you know, then kind of put your thoughts together and then bring in DDA and the city, and then you're looking at it from, you know, operational sides as well as what we're looking for our requests, and now how does that fit into our operation?
And it's simply to their benefits.
Yeah.
You know, to have consistency and continuity, it's to
Right.
their benefits. So.
Right. And, you know, the appearance, we're trying to make the beautification, what we're doing at the beginning of River Street, the just everything, the appearance of, this affects the appearance of
Sure.
downtown. When you
Sure.
drive downtown and businesses are closed, or, you know, so maybe a packet that, and I would love to talk to other merchants and form this committee, and then bring in the other entities that you had suggested. It just makes sense to have some more uniformity downtown. And then maybe down the road, once we've sought this, also, it could be something that business owners are looking at prior to opening their business.
Right.
This is what is required of me, or this is what is suggested of me. Can I handle the overhead to be open 7 days a week or 6 days a week, to be open
Right.
these hours that are suggested? Because there is an extra added expense to that.
I think that's a great idea. I'm very excited about the merchants that we have downtown. I mean, they're just really so more progressive, and I think that everybody's rejuvenated seeing
Yeah.
this growth that's happening. You know, now I hear people saying, "Boy, you can't find a place to rent downtown at all." You know,
Yeah.
so I think it's got everybody excited. And as we fill up and the excitement grows, you know, with good leadership and discussions, I think these are issues that are really important. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think it's time.
Yeah.
So I love this forward momentum that we do
Yeah.
have going. So, and then my long-term goal here with then, after we kind of get some of this started, looking at maybe a directory for our downtown.
Oh, yeah.
Again, showcasing our stores, showcasing what we're all about, what we're doing, something that would just say, here's our stores, here's our public restrooms, here's our art galleries, here's our, you know, lodging, here's our, just
Has there ever
something.
been a directory like that here?
As long as
Not
I've
as long as
lived in
I can
Manistee,
remember.
I haven't seen one, but a directory for sure. Yeah.
Is there
it'd be
anything
good.
on the website or?
I don't know. I don't.
The DDA has over the years done downtown maps of worker recreations, but the last one of those is probably about 5 years ago.
Okay, so, again, we have some work to do before we get there, so that the directory is accurate and a good representation of what we're doing.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
mentioned to Mark, I think that there's software for this with a web platform.
Oh,
So you may not have to develop this.
start from scratch,
So-
okay? Okay.
And I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Just a suggestion for the next downtown business connection meeting.
Yes, just next Tuesday.
I want to repeat that official new name, is to think very clearly and list the things that the merchants feel need to be included in such an effort, so that you are very clear about what needs to go into or come out of from the merchants about this effort.
Yeah.
One of the, and I know that Heather Peffley, our city clerk, will be very happy to hear me say this, so we're going to say it to her, is that it is very important that there are some requirements for a new business. They have to apply with the city for a new business license, and there's paperwork there. So we have to also include things like that to make sure that they're getting included and put into.
For sure, and this
put into that.
would be the perfect place to put that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's some melding of our economic development work that's already there, and kind of put that together too. So maybe you're maybe reviewing some of that as well.
I like it.
And another idea, I don't know if it's in that MSU study, if I, in like some of these streetscape reviews that I've done, or I've been walking around, actually gone to a couple of places in these streetscapes, but there was a design I thought for like a, historic kind of directory, but I thought it was like listing, the buildings themselves, like this is the whatever building, 1900 something, and then what's inside it. So that the primary part of the directory reviews the historic part of the city, and then the businesses are listed in those historic buildings. So I don't know if I saw it, I thought that was in one of the designs that I saw.
Yeah, there's, so part of this, kind of streetscape design that, we're going to get to, hopefully during my lifetime, is signage.
Right.
That's live. Like you go into a hotel and the hotel has, a big sign with scrolling events and, where the shops are and stuff like that. Kiosk software. So the directory lives in there, and then we've got kiosks, at multiple places, in the city, and they're all feeding off the same data and providing the same information. Events come up there, where to go, what hours are. So, but it's live.
So then the next issue let's talk about is Wi-Fi. Broadband. It never ends.
Music downtown.
Yeah. But I get to
Yeah.
pick the music.
Okay. Noted, okay. So that's what I've got, but right now, again, downtown, positive forward momentum
Very
going on.
exciting.
That we just need to grasp
Yeah.
and run with. And then July 19th, 8:30 is our next, I'm not going to call it merchant meeting, what did you just call it?
District businesses.
Downtown Business Connection meeting,
Oh.
that's the official. Christina changed that
Okay.
because we're including realtors and insurance companies. So
Oh.
that's the
Right,
reason why.
Downtown Connection. So that happens July 19th. Maybe we'll talk about this a little bit and start to form this committee. Because, again, I don't think that it needs to be all just retail merchants. Yes, it needs to be. We have accountants downtown, we have art galleries, we have realtors, we have, and it really, everybody needs to be able to give their input. So,
Exciting
yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
It really is.
Ask, it seems to me like there's tons of people downtown, almost 7 days a week. And that is a pretty big increase in traffic this summer. Am I dreaming that? Is that
No,
wishful thinking?
you're accurate. Our Sundays have been really, really good, and people walking downtown, the dogs, I mean, we have to do something about the dogs down, with dog park or something. The amount of people walking dogs downtown, it's so refreshing. It's really invigorating. It's really, or people that are coming downtown to enjoy our boat, the theater, just families out walking, or people that are shopping. We're getting a really neat group of people with different needs. That's kind of why I bring up, sometimes you can get a cup of coffee on a Sunday and sometimes you can't. Where is there outdoor seatings that they can seat and dine or have coffee with their dog? People ask me this, and I'm not 100% sure. I know that I've seen people over at the brewery sitting there with their dogs. I don't know that I've seen anybody at TJ's. Does TJ's allow it? Does
They do.
Goodies allow it?
Yep.
They do.
Yeah.
So just simple
Outside.
things like that are really dog-friendly, people-friendly, visitor-friendly, merchant-friendly. We want to be based to our.
As one of those dog walkers, I appreciate the bowls of water that are out there, and I don't know what it's one of our real estate agents, but they did put dog bones out, which I can't get past their building without stopping. Somebody knows they're there, and then they go over to Goodies. Yeah, so it is, you did remind me that in that park, we wanted to put bags, there's for dogs, Is that, how do we get that done? That-
Sorry,
There's a, like on the River Walk down here, they've got a thing where you can get dog bags out of. How do we
Is it
get
DPW?
some of that over to our park on River Street?
The art park on River Street?
Yeah.
It's privately owned, I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so privately owned, but we're putting money into it?
They have given it to us for public use until they want to do something with it. We can't put anything permanent there, like a splash pad or anything.
I can talk to, see if there's a place to put dog bags. I can talk to, we have a vendor, get some options.
Yeah.
Back to your original question, yes, there are people, a lot of bodies moving downtown. Mhm.
I'm seeing people struggle with parallel parking downtown. We need to tell people where in an obvious way and consistently where the lots are.
That's our entertainment. I mean, I'm downtown 60 hours a week, I need some entertainment.
I've seen some hair raising.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
my head, it's like, okay, so I grew up here, and that was one of the first things they taught you when you're driving, but
Yeah.
there are some interesting people that, it's like, oh, they've never parallel parked before. All right, well, and part of
Signage towards
the,
lots would be
Yeah.
good, yeah.
part of the streetscape
It's
is
fun.
all that, all that'll be evaluated and looked at, and it's pretty exciting, so. All right, good job, excellent stuff. Beautification, on to Kelly.
I actually think the mutt mitt is a good idea in the park. And so if we can get one there, we'd be happy to help with that. Our park is all volunteer run, and a lot of our own money is put into it too. We just pressure washed and stained all of the benches and picnic tables. And we would like to ask the DDA for some help with getting some 2 Adirondack chairs under the shade tree. We can purchase those at the Comfort Center if it could be something we could do. The tree garden, the Sieberts took it upon themselves, Bob and Jane and their family members, to totally take everything out of the tree garden, which is right next to Forcano's, and they totally redid it. It's finished. It looks beautiful. And then Mary Jo Gordon took it upon herself to do the butterfly garden, which is next to that, and that turned out really pretty too. They put a lot of time and energy and some of their own money into that as well. I would like to make a proposal if I can. I don't know if I can. But we have a proposal from Larson Landscaping for the 3-tier garden at the beginning of the Riverwalk, to behind the Manistee Inn and Marina, to the one that is on Water Street directly behind the museum. It's an entrance to the Riverwalk. I think that's outside our district, though, is it? Yeah. But they have a proposal of $8,000, and I spoke to them, and they are ready to do it for us. So I do have the proposal if anybody wants to look at it. I did forward it to Bill early on. I don't know if we would all be open to that or not.
Can I just clarify, 3-tier, are you talking about the ramp tier, those 3 tiers?
It's just east of the US 31 bridge. It's at
Oh.
the beginning of
Okay.
the
Where the
Riverwalk.
chamber
Yeah.
office is.
Behind the old
Yeah.
chamber
Old
office.
chamber office.
The bottom tier, we totally redid. We pulled all the sumac out and we repositioned all of the daylilies because
Right.
they were being choked out.
Mhm.
And personally, I think that looks good.
Mhm.
There could be some more added color put in there if we wanted. But the second and the top are overgrown and it's past their time. It doesn't look good anymore. And they quoted that at $3,500 to do that one, which is very reasonable. Our other bids were quite high.
So I think this is a great example for a topic later on the agenda. And that is, how do we bring in these and discuss and approve these proposals? And so we can have that discussion a little bit later, separate from this. But I think if we can, would it be okay with this proposal from Larson's to have it sit for another 30 days while we work through and have another discussion about it at a
Sure.
future meeting? Yeah.
It's been sitting for well over a year, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, the landscaping in general.
Okay.
That we were talking about over and over again.
I'll just make two comments. One being that parking lot where the former chamber building used to be, that is actually city-owned parking. So that, you talk about parking downtown, that it makes sense for this. I mean, very few people realize that that's a city parking lot, but it is. And the other thing is that is within the DDA district. The DDA district goes up to the Ironworks.
Yeah.
And that area there could be beautiful. It could be so beautiful, but right now it's just overgrown and not maintained.
But procedurally, can I ask, what would it take to approve that now? Is that a motion and a?
I think it should be a motion, and this will get us into the other discussion, but I think you have to have some discussion, and a recommendation that I would suggest would be tie it back to some language in the bylaws to make sure that it fits within our scope, so that that's clear, because we are, we should be transparent about the fact that we're taking taxpayer dollars, property tax dollars from a TIF, and then spending it on the purposes that are outlined from the state authorities and from the city authorities on what we need to do. So I think just a little bit of conscientious thought about what we're doing, why, and then the how.
And there has to be a transparency.
And that's
you're-
the second discussion that we're going to get
Right.
into. So maybe we can circle back on that question.
Yeah.
I think when we
Okay.
come to that, we can kind of make some decisions.
Okay.
too. All right, other stuff?
So the reason that I thought this was important is to have some continuity from, one portion of the Riverwalk to the next. I know that we had a lot of volunteers who are doing things with gardens, but it would be nice to have something that connects it all, that seems the same. And Larson's could have that piece by doing all three areas. Seeds helped us last year with a lot of the projects on the Riverwalk, and we were very grateful. And Jennifer Flynn just called me yesterday and said that they are available again to do some work. We are lacking volunteers, and it's been really challenging this year to do anything. And so I've got a call in to her this morning, and hopefully talk to her today, and we'll be able to have them back on scene to help us hopefully with, I'd like to attack the marina if we can next, to be able to make that look a little better. And I believe that's it.
Can you remind me, the planters, are they the responsibility of the owner in which they're in front of, or?
The planters on River Street?
Yeah.
I think that was going to be the city that was going to water
Okay.
up top and then down below.
Well,
There was
there's a
line.
planter on the east end of town where it starts that there's just weeds in it. There's nothing growing in it, so I just wasn't sure why that one wasn't filled.
Yeah, I didn't have that on my list to talk about, but I think, I did talk to DPW about the way that everything is positioned on the street. I'm not happy with the way that it turned out, and I wanted to fix it for the season, but there was some thought that dealing with the merchants, some wanted it in front of their stores, some did not want it out by the street. There was a lot of different mixed emotions, and instead of having that all resurface again, we wanted to just leave it and start from scratch again
Sure.
next year.
Okay.
But it would have been nice to get it all, there should have been more planters, and they should have been more strategically placed so it looked like there was continuity.
Right.
But it didn't happen that way.
And that could be stuff that's added to what
Yeah.
you're saying, is that, annually, in the season, the DPW will bring out the planters and,
My
put
thought
in.
is that the city should have their streetscape, and then the merchants should have their own flower boxes at their own entrances. So they're unique to their own business, but yet the city has the continuity that is needed to make it look like there is an actual design on River Street. But
So you've got,
it didn't happen that way.
and that all really leads way to the whole checklist thing that we have brought up before, just so for there to be more planters and more benches that are pleasant to look at and that we can put out, then that conversation needs to happen as soon as we pick up the planters. Like, how many more are we going to work on throughout the winter? How many are we going to sandblast and get ready for next year? How many do we need? How many yet have to be sandblasted? And like, that conversation really has to start now. And then again, that second layer, so, the city does that first layer with wherever the flower boxes are gonna go, and then the hanging baskets, and who's gonna water that. But again, that could go in that packet. Like, then, we have a planter outside of our door between ours and then I'd actually like to do a little bit more, but what can you do? Like,
Right.
what's too much, what can you do, what's recommended, so that,
The condition of the planters were talked about last winter.
Yeah.
And they were still put out, chipped and peeling.
yeah.
So I don't know what we have to do to make sure that they're out there painted and they look fresh, and there's one on each block.
Right.
Or,
Well, we-
how many that need to be in each block.
I think DPW did about 12, but I obviously have to do the rest of them.
Yeah.
And so where's that where's that checklist that says this is going to get done, this is what needs to be done? Because I appreciate that they're very, very busy, and this is like one more thing, but it's important to downtown. And so, that we're not talking about this next July, that we need to do 12 more, so, didn't we talk about a checklist?
Yeah. But just for this, I mean, my suggestion is you got a DDA working group, and that DDA working group can put out that checklist to say, going into this winter, here's how many planters, and coming out of the winter, here's where you're going to put them, and get that on the checklist, and we can put that on the agenda to check up on that and make sure that that's
But
done.
we did do that. Christina worked very hard on that as well, but it didn't happen the way that we wanted it to happen. So I don't know what we have to do to make it happen again next year.
One of my subject matters as we move down will be, I have an old business, some DPW stuff that I want to bring up, so we can maybe close out the beautification and then have Mark's report, and then I'd like to have a discussion more under old business. Yes.
I'll just, again, add one other comment, and that's just so everyone is aware that the sidewalk is city property. And
Okay, so-
unless you've got city approval, you're not supposed to put anything on the sidewalk without explicit approval from the city. And I know, so just as a city organization, as you're developing guidelines, just make sure that you're not encouraging people to do things that aren't technically allowed.
So like I said, some of this is old business stuff that I'd like to come back to, but let's finish up in beautification.
Yep.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then we can get Mark's report,
Okay.
executive report.
It has been a very exciting past couple months, and we are making a lot of progress. Let me start out with probably the best news I can give you today. That is that Ted Fricano has indicated that he will open up July 20th. So that is his official start date, so coming up next week. That is some good news. Ted's been getting everything ready. There are, and let me just, I've been working with Ted for about 2 years now. Let me just tell you that this project would be one that would drive a saint into certain levels of Dante's, because if it has gone wrong, if it could go wrong, it has gone wrong. And so it's been a real struggle with each and everything. Partly supply chain COVID related, but it has been a real struggle. So he is very dedicated to this community and getting something done, and he's going to be able to have a great restaurant in a fantastic location. And so his investment will certainly be something that we all can be proud of, because you'll be able to sit and have a glass of wine or a beer and a slice of pizza and sit on a deck and look at the marina. It's really fascinating to see that. Great progress. Stop by a couple days early, see what happens, check in on him. That would be my recommendation. But he's looking to open on 20th. Deanna had already mentioned something very important. I just want to cover it in the meeting. But the marketing screens at the construction site at the Gateway Project facing US 31 was a true collaborative effort. First of all, you had the County Visitors Bureau approving, designing, and delivering marketing that is very pro-downtown, pro-business, and inviting for folks. And you can imagine that there are a very high number of impressions as people are driving by, seeing the construction, but seeing the marketing messages. Downtown is open, come and play, really inviting photographs. So kudos to the CVB for taking that initiative and approaching the chamber. The chamber worked with all of our partners. We worked with the city, worked with the developers, Little River Holdings, to make sure that we had the ability to put that in place. And so we went up before the 4th of July weekend. We'll also want to just give some kudos to Jeff Dauntz, who's the chairman of the Economic Development Council underneath the chamber. You all think of him as the county board chair, but that he spent time with me that one day putting those up. So there's a little bit of volunteer effort and sweat equity that the chamber put in to get them up. But it has been very well received. We've had lots of positive messages, and I think hopefully it's encouraging people to turn left while that goes on. The Gateway Project is moving forward very positively there. They're working on preparing their plans to go in front of the Planning Commission, the City Planning Commission, and we will hopefully see some activity there, I would say early fall. So we'll start to have more discussion on what will go there and what you'll see, and perhaps we can come back with some more information when it's appropriate. But good stuff going there, and the demolition, which is being done by local contractors, Swiderski, is going very well, and so we'll see what continues. Traffic lane patterns will change once they get to the north side, so just know that that's going to be a little bit different. It should be both lanes open.
Mark, when you say activity in the fall, do you mean construction?
No.
Oh, okay.
We will have plans to review, look at for the Planning Commission. So, yeah, I would not expect construction to start until 2023. So that is just the fact. There are approvals, there's state assistance, there's discussions about the TIF, brownfield, and DDA that will need to take place. And so you all will be a part of that, and that's the activities that I kind of will be leading up to construction in 2023.
Isn't the bridge going to be done in 2023 as well? So
Yeah, it's starting in 2023.
Are these coordinated at all, or?
No, but I think they're, I wouldn't say coordinated, but they certainly are congruous. I mean, congruent, I can say that. So, let's see, we continue to work with downtown businesses and with developments, Northern Hotel, The Vault. Those are things that are active and moving forward, and so we're continuing to see that investment. We're waiting on the water housing development news, and if there's any state assistance for that, the old Amor site. We continue to work with entrepreneurs to try to find places. As Karen mentioned, it's hard to find a place to rent. So where do we put new restaurants and new bakeries and so forth? So that work continues. But just wanted to highlight Fricano's and the Gateway 40 Wall and the CBB collaboration. Any questions?
It's nice to see some movement on the old gas station across from where the House Flavors were at. I see he's building on the back of it now. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see something going there. It's been sitting for some time. It was a bittersweet moment. I spent time, my father owned that House of Flavors spot. We used to watch the fireworks from the roof behind the mobile horse. It's kind of sad to see it gone, but progression. I love it. Thank you, Mark, for your synopsis of what's going on. Let's move on to, do we have to approve your report?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to old business, which I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of what we were talking about. I agree with, having to get things, all looking well, but, I do get concerned that there was an expectation from our contract with DPW that things get done. And I'm still feeling a little bit let down that it's not getting done. You talk about moving on to the marina, which, I heard lots of comments about that's our pride and joy, and if it's your pride and joy, why does it look like it does?
So Katie's our new DPW clerk, and she's worked on a marina down in Ludington, so I think she's been doing a good job over there, so I'm grateful for volunteer efforts there, but I don't think it's necessarily an eyesore. I think she's been doing a good job. As far as the planters, I know going into this season, we talked about 12 being done. I came in September. Obviously, we can look at getting the rest of them done in the fall, so I understand that. I think old business also, Kyle's been talking about the evergreens in the parking lot. DPW's been, I think I met with him and walked through with, so this gentleman doing his native planning. We pointed out the evergreens, so those are being removed as well, so you'll see them kind of going around. So those are some other opportunities for plantings. But I'd be happy to bring Jeff McCullough back to the next meeting, but I do feel like we budgeted for the clock, the fountain's working, we've been painting curbs, making sure that looks nice, there's been sweeping, the watering's been done, but I understand it's been a long time. I think there's a lot of expectations and we want to meet those, but yeah.
And I
Take that off.
I give kudos for, how things have improved, definitely. I think the bigger issue for me, and it's something that I have repeated numerous times way before you were here, Bill, is that let's look at a good priority list, and then a maintenance management plan. I've asked for that numerous times and I've never seen it. But I think that would be a helpful tool moving forward, so that getting the information from like the beautification group, you might look at something one way and I might look at it a totally different way. So I think getting the input maybe from the beautification group on what might be more appealing, instead of I'm just going to put the wood chips down and move on to the next, the wood chips might be buried in the cedar and it doesn't matter. So having some sort of plan and prioritizing that plan. We have, again, DPW is not just sitting around. Absolutely not. I see them everywhere. And we have a lot of public area to cover. I would love the downtown to be a priority, but I know that First Street Beach was probably the priority for coming up to the 4th of July. So, being able to kind of look at how we address things, knowing where our festivals are going to be, and then getting down there and getting set and getting things ready prior to that festival, I think just having a good plan would be beneficial. And I think it would take some of the questions away that we have constantly. Well, where is this on the list, and how did that get a priority and stuff like that? So whether or not that's out there, I don't know. I just know it's never been shared. So
I think as far as an asset management plan, I think that's definitely something. When we're going through the streetscape process, we are going to be looking at what elements we want to keep, what we want to change, and I do think we put in that RFQ, that request for proposals, that we want to see something with low maintenance, and that should be taken into account. So I think with redoing the streetscape, I think that's all part of it. Obviously, this is an older, I think it's been 25 years.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt there's a lot of things that need to be worked on, but you're right, there's priorities. And then as far as the Riverwalk, we are looking at that EDA grant to revamp. But in the meantime, there are areas where planting is needed and things like that. So understood. I just think the plan is kind of the refresh and then kind of go forward with more of a maintenance plan. But in the meantime, you're right, we're in the thick of it right now, July.
Yep.
I guess if there's priorities, we did during the budget cycle, budget to fix certain things, and I think that's been moving along. But
And
I
I
guess
don't-
I just keep in mind that we're transitioning to kind of a next phase of these things, and it's not just kind of, why doesn't it all look great? We should have had a maintenance plan, and that's true for 20 years, and it should have been addressed, but I think we're trying to move on to the next step of this.
And that's great. And as we move on to that, I think, every once in a while, the DPW director may be coming. I don't think he needs to take up every month, but, to kind of keep us apprised of what that list is. And even to show up, there's going to be times he's going to have to show up and say, we can't get to that because we've got this to do. And at least knowing it's on the list, but this is the priority rate, that's okay too. I can accept that. No news makes people think of other attitudes and thoughts.
I'll just share that, so I think we have the Smoke on the Water event this Saturday. So we didn't have so when they did the original request for different items, it was assumed it was on the 4th of July weekend. They didn't resubmit the list, but they want all those items, all the fencing, all the, so they want that by Thursday, so that's the conversation we had yesterday. So there's constantly things coming up. I just want this DDA to know, and it's not, we can prioritize things when so there needs to be planning, but there are also things we have to address in the day-to-day.
And my thought too is that as we know that, that planning list, and here's our priorities, it may be that, okay, so we have Smoke on the Water coming up. We might have some traffic downtown, some extra people in town. Maybe, we could plan for, I got a bunch of volunteers that can take care of this downtown because DPW might be out here. So just, again, it's a planful approach to being able to meet everybody's needs. Or, if I was a business owner and, I'm not going to, I wanted all this fencing or something around my place, I'm going to know that there's no way because DPW has this priority and only so many hands. So it just really helps to manage the whole thing. So I appreciate that, Bill, and I appreciate all that you've pulled together and, have moved us forward in some of the stuff. You've brought in some new thinking, new approaches, so I appreciate that.
I wonder if I can make a suggestion here or a recommendation. I've been on the board since last October, so, and this has come up, and it has come up, and I wonder if could we add this as an agenda item until said checklist or accountability list is made and actually is apparent? Just so that we can have some check-ins monthly, because we do have a monetary contract. This isn't like, oh, the city's being nice to get these things done, right? We have a contract with them to get these done. Maybe we don't take priority over other certain events that are bringing commerce to Manistee. I get that, but we can't lose sight of the fact that we are paying for these services to be done, and sometimes they're falling short. Not saying that a lot of things haven't been done, but it just as an agenda item, that is our first point of check until there is a checklist made.
And as far as a checklist, I know that's been kicked around. I don't know that I want to give the DDA, I mean, as far as things that need to be done in the district, I understand that, and I think they've been doing sweeping, but I guess, yeah, it's fine if you want to discuss it. I'll have Jeff back at the next meeting.
There are a lot of positives in Manistee for sure. It goes without saying. But we also need to be realistic about things too. There were 3 families sitting at those picnic table areas up on the top of the city marina having a picnic. And they were all full of algae. I went and looked at them after, I mean, I knew what was there before they were sitting at them, but then once they left, I went and looked and they're all full of algae. And volunteers wanted to do those benches and we were sort of discouraged. So, the city is getting free help and it's not, I don't know what it is, but I've lost a lot of volunteers because they feel like they have to fight to volunteer their time and spend their own money, and I don't know what to say anymore. I've been doing this for 2 years, and it just feels like a constant fight, and it shouldn't be. I mean, we love Manistee, and we want it to be the best that it can be, and we're always fighting to clean stuff up, and we don't understand. And it's been very challenging this year with our volunteers. I've lost a ton of volunteers.
I think, Kelly, we talked, if you pick a date, I will make sure you get the equipment there, and we can promote it a little bit more on our website.
You've been great.
So,
You've been great.
But I think a lot of times it's kind of like, it seems like sometimes we try to, and I like that you want to get it done, but I think if we kind of said, oh, in 2 weeks we're going to do it, and then I can kind of make sure that we get all the items you need there, and we get the publicity out. So I just think a little bit more knowing what the date is ahead of time, and I can kind of, just if you could work through me on that, I'd be happy to help.
And I appreciate that, and I
And
appreciate all that you're doing.
And in all honesty, this has become a source of contention, probably, DDA and the city group. But I think that over the last couple of years, I've seen that better. I think that we've had better communication. I think Bill's bringing more transparency, and I think moving forward, having the ability to kind of have some sort of idea of what does your group want to tackle this year and what are we going to tackle. Yes, we have a contract, and I was one of the persons that hammered on that contract, and it was difficult. I think you were involved. I recognize that contract really doesn't even begin to cover the real costs. It's a very small contract for a lot of work, realistically. So I get that, but I'm trying to balance that out with just talk to us, just let us know, embrace us, get a listing together, get some ideas, and the transparency. And again, in this past year, I think with Bill's leadership, I do feel as if we're getting there. I think that our walkthrough, when we did our walkthrough, we heard a lot of comments, but I heard from actual staff, DPW staff, about their interests, their concerns, and what they want to do too. So that was a real good time to be able to kind of connect with them and go, oh yeah, they're not just blowing us off. They really are invested. They want it to be right too. And they're doing the best they can do here and there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to bring the fractions together, and I know Bill's trying to do that too, so that we can maybe have some uniformity, that they lean on us, or mostly your beautification crew, to know what is needed, and then plans on how to get it done the right way. And you mentioned it earlier, and I've said it for years and years and years, and that's why I just said we have to go to the streetscape, because we have been putting Band-Aids. This is a thing, Manistee can be very fiscally responsible and use a lot of Band-Aids. But then again, the Band-Aids, blow off and you've got a mess. So I think that, moving forward on the streetscape, it has asset plans, it has maintenance plans, it has ideas for all this stuff in it. And I think that when I was reading through them, I'm just getting excited all over again, because it's like, oh, this could be our final step that moves it all together. So I don't want to lose the fact that we need to talk about this stuff, and we'll stay on it. You're right, we can keep that on old business. But it's like, we'll keep trying to bring them together. And at this point, I really look to you, Kelly, and your team, because you've got the eye to be able to say, this is what we need. And so we just want to be able to have them hear that and move forward with a good plan.
The whole thing started with us purely wanting to help. That
Yep.
was it.
Yep.
Period.
Yep, and it was, and I, again, I don't want to put too much of my social work hat on, but, it's like, this is our job, this is our responsibility, here, who are you guys, and, it's all of that. I think you struggle through your first year. This year, I think it's a little bit easier, but feelings have been hurt, and I understand that. I get that totally. So people don't want to kind of come to the table again. I get it. We have to heal those and bring them back later and show them that we can be transparent. Make sense? Okay. Anything else under old business? Old business, unfortunately, sits there and is never really totally resolved, but we'll get there. I'm excited about these new plans. New business, we have a procedure for appropriations to discuss.
So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but what makes sense, we're going to have a discussion about how we do appropriations that will stand up to accountability and to make sure that we make it easy for everyone to follow a process. And so we outlined some of that a little bit earlier in the discussion, but I would just cut to the quick here and make a suggestion that if we can have appropriation proposals come in to the DDA for discussion at the next meeting, that would have, amount, documentation, go to the bylaws and draw the authority, somehow state the line from the bylaws that makes sense. If this is for beautification, or this is for investment in or a directory of downtown, et cetera, that is drawn from that document. And then the last piece is, if you can, and you may need help, try to identify the line item in the budget that's appropriate. Now, I don't anticipate that you will be able to pull that document up, and, I can't do that easily myself. But if you have an idea of where you think it should go, that would help. And then that will also make our budget discussions more informed, so that when we go to City Council with the annual budget, then that's something that we have a discussion on. Just like the last discussion with the services contract, we have a lot of deferred maintenance or deferred projects because we don't have enough resources. And so how do we thoughtfully, coherently, holistically tackle those deferred issues, problems, whatever? That would be my suggestion. So please discuss this. What do you think of that idea? And we can figure out a consensus for moving forward.
since we don't have like a finance committee or something that can make recommendations and review this stuff, I think that those finance statements or requests need to be in the board packet for full review. Again, opening up to full transparency so that, we can kind of link it to, it was reviewed, it was discussed, it was approved, and now it's, and if city council reviews that, then they'll see the whole chain of events of how we came to that. Usually you would do that in a finance committee or something like that, make the recommendations, but we don't have those committees. I think we'd have to come to the full board.
I think with Kelly's, I think we budgeted $20,000 for beautification, so I would just think that if she submitted to you and it's part of the packet
Packet for
everyone
next
to
month.
look at ahead of time.
Yep. The full, not just the 3,500, but is it all together, it's 8,000?
Yeah, it might be, this was a proposal from last year. It may have gone up a little, but it was $7,825.48.
Okay. And so as a committee, we can all, or as a council, as a board, we can always do an up to amount when we have these situations.
So that's I think that's good consensus, and I don't think that anything needs to be voted on here, but that will help direct us for moving forward, less frustration and less sitting around. We can be very direct about putting it on the agenda, and that will be the marching orders I have from you to move forward. So we'll get that information, put it in the next board packet, and then Bill's on top. He knows his budget. That's good.
I have a meeting at 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
And I do need to go open our store too, since.
Yeah. Just
It's the
quickly,
piano show
you
today.
might want to call them and see if they want to, is that still okay or a
Yeah, I
percentage?
just talked to them, they're ready to go.
All right.
That comes until August now.
All right, timelines on the 2022 facade grants?
That's me
Chuck?
also.
Okay.
We have received a number of facade grant applications without, and it's the same situation. Make it more streamlined, we don't have a committee that reviews those. How do we want to proceed with that? So I'm asking for direction on what to do with the facade grants. My recommendation would be to put out a 1-month call, kind of a final call. And there's a number of downtown businesses that already submitted an application, but just give everyone a fair chance. This is something that needs to come in by, I don't know, just out of the thin air, not based on anything, August 15. And then we will then proceed to review and then bring it to the board for recommendation. So it might be another ad hoc type committee where some people want to come in and review them with me. But that would be my recommendation. Do you feel differently about how that should proceed? I'd like to know if there's any other thoughts, because it's
No, I think you're giving people an opportunity and, but you gotta cut it off somewhere, so.
that's right.
Yep. Anybody have any opposing ideas or? All right,
Okay.
sounds good, Mark.
We'll give everybody 30 days. We'll put out some news about it and whatever's appropriate, and then we'll come back to you with agenda items.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items? Public comment again? Anything anybody like to add?
Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline Lamb, and I've lived here in Manistee for less than a year now, but I love it. And I have a few thoughts. I don't really know. I'm not terribly well prepared for presenting them, but when I look out on the street, River Street, and I see prime real estate, and not just the buildings, but the street itself. And I can't help but think that River Street could be tremendously improved by removing the parking. think that it would solve so many of the issues that you all have been talking about today in terms of, people who can't parallel park, like families having room to sit around on benches and mingle and not be blocking the sidewalk, businesses, cafes spilling out into the street, creating a lively street life, businesses being able to, businesses themselves being able to spill out onto the street and create, displays and planters or whatever they like just to increase the amount of space for all of those things. And that could be done really cheaply and easily just by removing the parking. You mentioned, Mark, about how there's these lots all around town that are not being used, nobody knows they're there. And how do you incentivize people to use those parking lots? You give it, that's their only option, that's where you park. And then you walk downtown because it's foot traffic that brings in business, not car traffic. You have this car, I can see it from where I sit, what's its footprint, like 50 square feet or something? And what else could that 50 square feet be used for? What is the opportunity cost of that 50 square feet? It could be a micro park with a little jungle gym for kids and people could stop and rest while they're shopping and let their kids climb. I mean, the opportunities are endless of what could go where that one car is. What is the benefit of that car being there instead of a micro park or cafe tables or benches or trees or anything? There is a small benefit to the convenience of that one person parking, but I don't think that convenience outweighs the benefit that could be reaped from repurposing that space, because that's prime real estate. The buildings, of course, there's not, people are competing for the places to put their businesses downtown because Manistee is growing, and I foresee it growing a lot in the next 10 years. I mean, this place has the most beautiful bones of any city in Western Michigan that I've seen, and it could be that trend could continue. All of the hard work the generations have put into making this a beautiful place could just be continued and made even better. Additionally, and this is a little bit of a bigger ask, I think that if you limited car traffic between Division Street and the Fountain to delivery vehicles, emergency vehicles, handicapped, and local residents and youth, then you would have just a place for people instead of a place to drive through. Because the only businesses that make money off of people driving through are McDonald's. Nothing wrong with McDonald's, but this is downtown Manistee. And, we got something better to offer here, and I would love to see these kinds of, incremental moves towards livelier spaces. And I think that there's a lot of proof of this kind of development in cities, primarily in places like the Netherlands and Northern Europe has really been on the ball with this kind of development, and I think that it's the trend in downtown development moving forward into the future. We have, reached peak car, and we are going back to, face-to-face, on-foot kind of interactions, and I would love to see Manistee develop in that way, and I just wanted to come here today and voice that vision.
Your visions are part of what has been expressed before, and part of our MSU study, and now the streetscape evaluation. So everything that you have identified are all part of these, the streetscape proposals. So we are looking for foot traffic. We are looking for, combining, we have to be respectful of our property and our riverfront, and how to combine all this. So everything you've brought up is in our proposals. So.
And I'd like to add too, there may be opportunity for public engagement during
Yes.
the streetscape visioning process that the DDA will pay for and move forward. So you may have another opportunity to help guide that as a member of the public. So please stay tuned and look for an opportunity to continue to voice your concern.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
Well, okay. When Mark and I were here previously and talked about the plans and I mentioned the artist who had volunteered the services or offered the services. He is planning to come back to the area sometime this month. And so I wondered, some individuals had expressed strong interest in having him do some things. Is that realistic?
For permanent artwork downtown on the Riverwalk, or what do you?
Well, Kelly, you had,
We were talking about the, what do they call, the boxes, the
Oh.
utility boxes.
Yeah,
And also, I was talking to him about one of the walls in the art park. I, of course, have to talk to the building owner, but there are various things that we could look at, I think.
I'm not sure, did consumers give us the,
Not yet.
yeah. I don't know, I was talking with a commissioner that works for consumers, and I think there's like a shrink wrap thing they do now.
Yeah. This has been something we've been talking about for probably a year and a half.
Yeah.
And we still don't have an answer.
Yeah, I do, well, I had heard that they do not
Let you paint
offer,
on them.
yeah.
Yeah. on
But
the
I
wrap.
made the comment about then, what are they going to do about them?
Right.
But that's when we got into this discussion that they had this high intense shrink wrap type of thing that they put on them. But I didn't follow that conversation any further than that.
Yeah.
The painting and stuff like that, that's again, private property. That would be up to them.
That would be an HDC approval.
Yeah, the historic district would definitely want to be involved in that. So,
Why don't we connect after the meeting?
Yeah.
And Kelly perhaps as well, and we can talk through a couple of steps.
thank you.
yeah, all great ideas, just don't know how to get them. You know, we're dealing with private property in both situations. So, we'll have to work through that. Great. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I helped Kelly a couple of days on the Riverwalk when she worked, and she had a hard time keeping things going. City didn't provide a lot. That was before Bill, I think, even
Oh, yeah.
came.
Yeah.
And so, I took it up at the council meeting and tried to get things changed around because, you get volunteers. Hell, you want them to do whatever they can do.
Right.
So they don't have to come back kind of time again.
Right.
And so I hope it got easier for her, because I know they did that whole Riverwalk. And so whatever we can do, Kelly, like I said, come to the council and I'll certainly push it. I know a bunch of the other council people on it too.
Thank you.
So, we want to keep you working.
I think that if we continue to push this transparency and, again, if the big project is to get, First Street ready for 4th of July and, the downtown might be our second priority, I'd like to know that. It's, at least I could say that to the volunteers. It's like, you know what? Their priority's here, that's where they're all tied up. So, we have this project, maybe we can work on this. Being able to kind of at least have that communication and to see that project list
Well,
is gonna be
when we had Jeff come up to the council and he said, we can do so many benches a year. By the time you get to 140 benches, it's another 10, 15 years. But if you got volunteers who can work on, give them the tarps to put under the benches or whatever to stop the paint from falling down.
Yep.
And, quit fighting about it,
Yep.
let's get it done.
Yep.
As long as they're willing to do it, hell, I'm glad.
Yep.
Saves the city a lot of money.
Yep. Oh, they have been a godsend in many ways. And I feel bad that, that was a rough year and it's paying out this year. You're seeing it this year. But, hopefully we can push this a little bit more to give that transparency. In this community, people just want to know, just talk to me about it. I might not like it all the time, but just talk to me about it so then I can at least know that it's not
Once
because.
we found out about it, then
Yeah.
we could take it up and
Right,
bring everybody together and say, hey, let's quit the fighting and let's do the work.
right, exactly.
So that solved a lot, I hope.
Yep. All right,
I never felt like we were fighting.
Yeah.
I just felt like we weren't,
supportive?
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got a lot of good ideas, between everybody, so.
Well, and I think that's why our community is moving ahead as it is. I mean, I think we've got new blood, new ideas, everybody's, re-energized. We've got a lot of smart people, coming together, talented people coming together. So I think that, and I think it's showing. We've had, I can think from when I started to even now, it's just getting more and more exciting to see what's coming. I
Are we ever
can't
going to
wait.
do another walk down River Street, the River Walk?
We could ask for that.
I think
Probably
that's-
at the-
I think that's a really good
Yeah.
idea to do every year.
Yep.
And then, I think you might want to have a meeting in April, just, to
Prep.
prep the checklist.
Yep.
And then in October, after the walkthrough, to say what's next year.
Can I ask a question now? How many walkthroughs have you had since you've been on DDA?
Oh, well, there was a committee, that's all right, there was a group that did the walkthroughs. I think they were doing like once a month or a couple times a quarter. So, personally, I wasn't on that, but the only one I've done was with the whole group. But there was a committee that would do that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
just wonder did they do exactly what he's saying? Were they satisfied with the results from the walkthrough and their ideas that they had?
Yeah.
This stuff, you do the walkthrough, and, it's like everybody sees something a little bit different, but you come to a consensus about some stuff on the list.
But dirt is dirt. I mean,
And then some of the stuff that you get on the consensus gets done, and there's stuff on the edge that doesn't get done, and it has to be, the only way to get things done over the long term is to have it be a regular thing. There's always going to be stuff that's on the margins that doesn't get done, but you find over time that more and more and more of the list is handled the way that you want it to be handled.
Well, I think that also too, I like your idea because April, let's get ready, this is what we're looking for. October, let's see how you did according to your contract. This is an evaluation process, so doing that in October, would kind of be, all right, we can get ready to talk about new contracts. Barry?
So this is public comment.
Yep.
I chaired that committee for
Yep.
3 or 4 years. We would generally try to do that, to have the spring walkthrough and then a fall walkthrough. The challenge was really the follow through,
Yep.
getting anything on paper.
Yep.
You have all these ideas as you're walking through, but then translating it into a document that can be concrete follow-up, that was always the challenge. And I would say we were generally never satisfied with the results. But one thing I'll add, and it's for this, but it's also for a lot of different things that have been talked about today, is that spring and fall. But another important thing this group needs to think about is the budget cycle that usually starts in February, because that's where all of this stuff should be coming together, and all the planning for the coming year should happen through that budget cycle. And it requires a lot of organization and really planning to have all of that, because that's many months ahead of when you're actually thinking of spending money, potentially a year ahead. And really, that planning is difficult. And there's transition now with Mark stepping in, and that's hard. But that's really important, is that planning, budgeting process.
And just let me also add, first of all, Barry, thank you for comments, but in some instances, we need to be thinking a full year and a half ahead because of the fiscal year ending on June 30th. If there's something you want done in April, May, you need to make sure that you're out a full year and a half of talking about it in the budget cycle. And this isn't news to me. I mean, I've dealt with government budgets for 20 years, but we do have to start thinking about it in those terms. And I think if we can incorporate that into our thinking, we probably will be more successful with all of the things that we're trying to fund.
That's perfect, yeah. See, last year, when we got into this conversation, a comment was made, that, Jeff could have really used more help in the budget process, a little more advocacy. I think it's really important to get to the point where you understand that this list and the volunteers who come out are participating in the budget process. That's where the feedback comes in to what should be in the budget. It doesn't have to be, a bunch of citizens in February. It would be handy to have them all show up right when the process needs them, but they've been showing up all year, voting with their feet about what's important. And I want to get to the point where our process, the walkthroughs and the reviews in this meeting get articulated as, now, that should give you feedback for your budget process in February. Right? It's not independent stuff. It's the same thing. When people are dissatisfied with something on the Riverwalk, that means it's a budget priority in February.
Well, I personally am not into budget management through throwing darts. If you don't have an asset plan, if you don't know what your maintenance expectations are, you're throwing darts. And I've been on this and been irritated by it for some time. If we knew what that asset plan was, and I want the city to absolutely look at what their assets are. 20-some years ago, built a lot of nice asset stuff, but then it was a constant, like, well, who's in control of that? Who takes care of the Riverwalk? Put it in writing. I want to see that this is the asset plan.
That's what we need help with.
This is what we need, so that, especially in the DDA area, if we know that here are the priorities, then we have a plan. We have a way of saying, well, we can help support. We need a new fountain. We can help to do the funding on the new fountain, whatever that is. The other thing I get worried about is, thank you, Kelly, and everybody that's been doing a great job and getting everything cleaned up, but what if this all disappears next year? What's the plan? How are you going to maintain it? These are things that we don't have answers to, and I'm keep looking for those answers. I want to know, they've done a great job. How are you going to keep it looking that way? Those are the kind of things that we kind of want to keep working on.
Another comment I will add is, I think the board needs to go back and look at your maintenance agreement with the city.
Yes.
That took literally years to hammer out. And while it's not perfect, it was, from my perspective, very fundamental in the fact that it was for the first time that the city agreed that they own the infrastructure,
Yep.
and it is their responsibility to maintain it.
Yep.
Avoid the temptation when they're not doing their job that this organization puts the bill for the city to do what they said they would do. Because your resources have purposes, and it's not, my opinion, and I think that agreement backs it up, it's not to maintain the stuff that was done 20 years ago. Because then you're never going to move forward.
All right. It's a good place to end. All right. Board members, anything else?
It really is, even for an aesthetically challenged person such as myself, it really does look
Oh, awesome.
so much better around here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yes.
But as we walk the Riverwalk, we see things that could be done again.
Yep.
That
And that's why I
have-
say, as we develop this, someone like with your eye has to be on, in all honesty, I walk the Riverwalk all the time, and me and my husband, and it's like, and I'll go, oh, look at that, and he'll be like, what's wrong with it? So you got to have somebody who's looking at the bigger picture, who has the macro view and has the ability to kind of bring it all together. And there may be somebody who's going to go down there and go, why would they plant those flowers? It just might be a different opinion, but at least we have a consistency. We have one view that's a consistency. And again, the Streetscape is bringing this out. There's landscape designs in these as well. So it's just a lot of great stuff. I'm so excited about bringing this forward. So, thank you, everybody. We will adjourn.
Thank you.